down, go up, go down, and if you want to point something, you can press.
Okay, hi everyone. Hello everyone, last talk for the day. It's nice of you to be here rather than, you must have all not realized that it's sunny outside and it's quite hot in here, but it's nice that you're all here. So my name is Chris and I'll be speaking, I'm from Gnosis, and I'll be speaking about the decentralized exchange that we're currently building. So let's get into that. So what are we, or what are we building? We're building a decentralized exchange for ERC20 tokens, and we're using a auction mechanism, a Dutch auction mechanism, to find the fair value for tokens. So decentralized exchanges at the moment are quite hyped, and they're popping up more and more. So at this point in time, I actually want to go into the mechanism we're using and why we think it's slightly different than all the other decentralized exchanges. Obviously, I don't have to go into detail why we all think decentralization is great and there's no central storage of trust, there's no intermediary, and I think ERC20 tokens is quite self-explanatory at this stage as well. So I would like to go into the mechanism we're using, and to do that, I would like to start off by telling you what the traditional exchanges, decentralized as well as centralized, actually look like today. So traditionally, they're all order book based, and we will go through a few of the advantages at the end that we find we have with our model, and that's why it's important to quickly look into what a order book look like. So this is what I've copied this from another decentralized exchange. It's an order book, and let me see if this works. So basically, these here are the accumulation of all the limits orders. So you have all the people who are willing to sell and all the people who are willing to buy. So limit orders get placed into the order book. So you have the bid. It's a specific amount to buy, basically the maximum amount you're willing to buy. You have the ask, specifying the minimum amount that you're willing to sell at. So you have your bids and you have your ask. Then you have this gap in between, which is called the spread. So what does then a market order do? A market order is an immediate execution of what you want to sell or buy. Just say, let's say these are willing, oh no, sorry. These are willing to sell, and then if somebody wants to come in and buy this specific volume, they will just buy at the best available price. So what is an order book? An order book is actually a continuous auction, meaning that the bids and asks are actually processed as they come in, leading to the price discrimination where everybody really obtains that price that they're willing to buy and to bid at. It's called discriminatory pricing. So we see a few problems with this traditional model, which we're trying to solve with the mechanism that we're applying. So let's go into detail what these problems might be. So the first and actually major problem is front running. What is front running? Front running is of a party who has information ahead of time to make use of that information and execute a trade before any other party is actually able to do that. Some might call it insider information. Front running actually comes from, in the traditional stock exchanges, when a trader heard something and wanted to have it executed before somebody else's and was running to another trading desk with their piece of paper in hand and cutting in front of another person in line, basically. But it's very much a problem on centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges. Another problem we see is the high-frequency trader, which actually skim the market. So basically, these are automated computer programs, actually probably very large computer capacity built very close to an actual exchange to obtain information with a speed advantage. So we see high-frequency trader as actually extracting value from the market. Another problem you have is a overlapped order book or a crossed order book, which you might not see very well. Let me try this. So basically, I explained what the order book looked like before, and then if the order book actually overlaps somewhere here, you might have somebody fulfilling, trying to so say these are willing to sell, you might buy and then sell again using that arbitrage for your own advantage. So you have that problem of overlapping order books, which is actually magnified if you take this to the to a decentralized version, because canceling orders is actually quite, there's a time lag in canceling orders. What you also have in illiquid markets is you have a big spread, which I explained. Let me keep that up. Which I explained is when you have your order book, if there are very limited amount of people, you have a big spread, and you might only have, you know, a few offers on either side. So if a market order comes in, it can very well be that the market order actually buys off this side of the order book, leading to huge fluctuation in price. What do exchanges also do? They copy order books from other exchanges to make it look like they have more volume on their order book. So basically what we are saying is taking this traditional order book model and applying it to blockchain doesn't really work, especially also in the sense of front running, because it magnifies it. There are more parties to front run, there's more time to front run, there's really only block time, there is no continuous time. The continuous auction model shouldn't be applied to the discrete space we have on blockchain. Okay, so that's kind of our value proposition here. What are we doing? Let me just get into the auction models we're using. So the first one is what's a discrete auction. It's also called a batch auction. It basically means before you execute trades one by one, or you don't execute trades one by one, you batch them together. So this could even be seconds, really disallowing high-frequency traders who make use of milliseconds in their markets. High-frequency traders really cannot be active very well when you batch the orders together before you process them, leading to a single price clearing, or uniform price. All the participants in that batch will obtain the same price. What are we using specifically in our model? And you might have guessed by the name Gnosis Dutch Exchange, we're using the Dutch auction model. What is the Dutch auction? Many of you might be aware from some of the ICOs. You start with a really high price, and it's falling. Bidders are active during that time, and when the price is right for them, they will bid. When the auction closes, all bidders will actually obtain the same price, the same closing price. What does that do? That incentivizes the bidder to bid at the point in time when the price is right for them, at the highest willingness to pay, because they will either obtain that price or a lower price. If they wait longer, so there's really no better strategy than to really reveal your true willingness to pay. If you get in ahead, you might overpay. If you get in too late, you might also not be part of the market. Okay, so how are we using these two auction mechanisms in our design? We have two stages. Let me get into that as well. So prior to the auction, let's go through an example where you have token A versus token, or being exchanged for token B. Sellers deposit token A ahead of the auction. So we're batching them together, as you can see here. Bidders are at that stage currently not active. We then enter the auction phase where sellers are no longer active and bidders will take part. So you actually have, oh, I keep switching this, sorry. You have a fixed auction volume that's being auctioned off, so that doesn't change. And then you have the bidders that are active during the auction phase, revealing their true willingness to pay. You then have an auction clearing price. Actually, I would like to get into this part a little bit more, so there's another graph just magnifying this. So what is this? This is the price function. We start with a really high price, and the price is dropping over time. Then you have here the bids coming in. I think this one is in Ether. So you see here the first person values it at this price. Then there's another bid coming in, another bid, or multiple bids. And then here you see the auction is cleared at where these two functions meet. So when does a particular auction pairing, so you have AB, you have BC, you have kind of any token pairing, when do these start? First of all, if you have AB, A being the sell token, B being the buy token, you also have the BA auction running at the same time, right? Where B is the sell token and A is the token that is used to buy, to bid. They will start the earliest 10 minutes that the prior auction has closed. There is a threshold, a liquidation threshold of $1,000 for one of the auctions to actually start. This is because, I mean, it might be a better model for illiquid markets, but you still need some liquidity for buyers to actually be attracted to be active in the market. And as I said, we start with a really high closing price, and that is twice the prior closing price. When does an auction then end? So there are really three conditions where an auction can end. Let me go back to this one. So one of them is that enough bids have come in where a bid actually closes the auction. So imagine this bid actually was a little bit more of Ether coming in, then the price that would be for token A would actually be higher. It would cross here and close the auction. Imagine there are no more bids coming in at this point, so this volume here will remain equal and meet the price function here. Then that means it's closed by the price function because the price for A kept dropping until the volume that is already in that auction buys off all the A at that price. And then there is a third possibility of an auction closing, which is if there are no bids, then an auction closes after 24 hours. Economically, that's not expected to happen because as soon as the price is right, there will be bidders, or at least that's what market theory dictates. If not, it's probably a token of value 0. So how long does an auction take? We've designed the price function such to reach the last closing price after 6 hours. So 6 hours would be a good guesstimate. Obviously, with the volatility, it can be much more, it can be less. So we don't know how long an auction will take. So how does this look like over time? So I kind of explained to you what one auction does look like, but really it's on repeat. So what we've just seen is one of these. So sellers deposit, bidders bid, then obviously the third step is that payouts are being made. And then, as I mentioned, once there is a closing price here, we will start 10 minutes after that with twice the price again and have this whole set on repeat. So there's only always one auction for the same pairing at any point in time. Okay? So many people ask me, so what do I need to be active in the Dutch exchange? The quick answer, there are no tokens needed to be active in the Dutch exchange. So Gnosis, the GNO tokens, they are not needed to be active in the Dutch exchange. You may, probably not all of you are familiar with OWL. OWL are those fee reduction coupons that are being created by locking down your GNO tokens. They may be used to pay up to half of the fee of the Dutch exchange. Then there is another token currently called Tulip, but for obvious reason we're actually changing that to be called Magnolia. So you will see the old slide here. So tulips are also not required to be active on the Dutch exchange, but they're intrinsic to the system, meaning they're actually being generated by you trading on the Dutch exchange. So for every Ether worth of whitelisted token, you will receive one tulip. you can use these tulips, they're locked by default, and you can use them to make use of a fee reduction, which I will get to in a minute. So they're locked by default. You may unlock them, then you may not use them for fee reduction, but then they're tradable and can be relocked. So they're really only, they're inflationary. We create them for every ether worth of trade, and your fee reduction depends on how many tulips you hold in comparison to the entire tulip market. So let's see what the fee reduction looks like. So it's a step model, a step function, sorry. The fee starts at 0.5%, or is the highest at 0.5% for both sellers and bidders. If you hold 0.001% of the tulips of the entire tulip markets, you already only have a fee of 0.4%. This actually goes down to 0%. If you hold 10% of the tulip market, you pay no fees for trading on the Dutch exchange. So to get into a little bit of more detail on the fees, as I mentioned, they are by default 0.5%, both for buyers and for bidders and for sellers. They should be paid in the participating token, the exception being participants may pay up to half in OWL. Why would they want to pay in OWL? So on our exchange, 1 OWL is worth $1 worth of fees, and they might be tradable for less in the market, so there might be an incentive to pay in OWL, but nobody has to pay in OWL. So then there's the reduction based on the locked tulips, as I mentioned earlier, going to be rebranded locked magnolia. Who benefits from the fees? So let me stress this. The fees do not go to Gnosis. Fees paid in OWL are actually burned. They're sent to a smart contract with no private address, so they're consumed. Fees paid in any token remain in the ecosystem of the Dutch exchange. Okay? Okay, it's gone off here, but it's still there, so that's okay. So what does that mean? Fees paid in one auction in a particular token will be attributed as additional sell volume for the next running auction of the same pairing. So we're redistributing fees within the ecosystem because we want to incentivize people who use the Dutch exchange a lot to actually benefit from the fees. So, yes. Okay, let me go into some of the advantages of the Dutch exchange mechanism as I've explained it right now. So the first one is that there is no front running possible by any party in this mechanism. Potentially, the seller has over 6 hours to deposit their token, so they're not really reliant on when their transaction is being mined. The bidders, on similar point, because so that the decreasing price function is designed such to decrease very slowly at the critical points that many blocks are actually mined with around the same price. So it's not super critical for the bidders to be in a certain block. So then the auction also clears with the same price for all the sellers and all the bidders, so there's really no information advantage or advantage of your transaction being in there first. So on the front running, obviously here, any party could potentially front run on a decentralized exchange because the information is available ahead of time, especially miners, because they're in charge of the order the transactions are mined and which transactions at all to put in those blocks. Also because the smart contract of the Dutch exchange that matches automatically and on-chain, there's really also no trust needed into the exchange, and the Dutch exchange cannot front run either. I've grouped some of the other advantages loosely under the title volatility and fairness. So one is it's a fair mechanism to find the value for tokens. And why is that? That's because of the Dutch auction that we're using. You really incentivize bidders by using the optimal strategy for them, which is to actually be active when they are willing to pay and the highest willingness to pay. Also, it's safe to include any sell orders of any size without slippage. So slippage basically is what I kind of explained here, when the order book leads to high volatility and spikes in the order book because there are so few orders already accumulated in the order book as such. So what we do is the Dutch exchange, it, as I said, has a single clearing price. It matches automatically and on-chain, so there is also no overlapping order book, and I was explaining that before, that is one of the problems that traditional models face with that order book. So there's really no arbitrage. Also, we are batching the orders, so it's a little bit of a better model for illiquid markets. And some decentralized exchanges have the problem of fulfilling one market order with many limit orders, which is also not a problem here. So regarding the volatility, this is just another decentralized exchange, and I think every one of these is 1 hour, and I think just one of these is a volatility already of 8%, so traditional order books have a very high volatility in some cases. Another advantage which we see is regarding gas costs. So one, let me say that gas costs obviously incur, and they're quite similar to other decentralized exchanges out there. I can go into detail if we have a little bit of time at the end, but there are 3 additional advantages that we see with our mechanism. One is there is no cancellation of orders, or no gas costs incur because you want to cancel your orders, because there is no cancellation of orders because we actually execute all orders. Also, as I mentioned before, it's relatively slow, so it's not so super critical when your transaction is mined, so you may well choose a low gas price. Also, there's no risk of incurring any gas costs because your order has failed. It's been tried to being fulfilled, but many traders try to fulfill the same order, leading to the fact that only one order can be processed, which looks kind of like this. So you can see here that these orders actually are failed orders on, I think I took this from Etherscan from another decentralized exchange, and you can see here, or maybe you can't see, but transaction costs still occur. Right. There's a whole set of other advantages that we see. One critical one is the usability of this mechanism for other smart contracts, meaning there's no off-chain signing needed. Also, there is no off-chain receiving and submission to the blockchain needed. Additionally, there is no strategy that is needed for your orders to be fulfilled. So another smart contract may just deposit them into the Dutch exchange, which we think is really great for other smart contracts who have the need to convert a token into another token. What we will strive to be is also a reliable on-chain price oracle. As I mentioned before, it's all quite relatively slow, so likely there will be a less volatile price, and we consider this mechanism to actually be a mechanism to find the fair value of tokens, meaning that we will hope to be a on-chain price oracle. Having mentioned so many advantages, obviously this comes at the cost of speedy trading. So there's actually a high frequency trader wouldn't want to be on this model, but we consider this to be a good thing. Some might disagree, but we consider this to be good. Okay. I was told I can't do a live demo, so I have some screenshots of what the interface could look like for the seller. So let me just run you through that. So you will see it's meant to be very simplistic. So I'll tell you a little bit more detail about who we expect to be a seller and who we expect to be a bidder in this mechanism. But we really expect anyone to be a seller because there's no specifics needed to know other than depositing your token. So if you're familiar with Shapeshift, it might look a little bit like that. So you may here pick what you would like to sell and the token that you would like to receive for it. The seller may then continue to order book details. Here you may enter, the only thing you will have to enter is actually the amount that you would want to sell. We will show you the estimated amount of getting based on the last price available, the last closing price of the prior auction. However, obviously that's only an estimate. You will continue to your wallet details, so whatever you have, your MetaMask is plugged in here from the beginning. You will see your auctions and where you have still claimable tokens. You continue to your order details, the MetaMask will pop up and you will submit your order into the next running auction. Okay, you will be shown this because the auction will not have started, and at some point you would want to come back to a specific address to claim your tokens. Okay, right, let's go a little bit into potential users. So as I mentioned, the seller, really we've designed the interface to be super simplistic and for anyone to be used. For the bidder, we expect a little bit more more professional traders, because they actually have to be active at the point in time where the price is right for them, and they will need to know what they consider to be the right price for them. Specific user groups or use cases is quite interesting. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with listing processes on other centralized or decentralized exchanges. It's quite a pain for new token projects. It can actually cost up to millions, and the whole process is very cruel. So this is quite cool because anyone can use the same mechanism, and we don't take any fees to list your tokens on the exchange. You can also, so token projects sometimes are in the need of buying back tokens. So this is one way of publicly announcing the way you would want to buy back. May that be over a course of several auctions. It's really up to how you would want to communicate this, and there's a lot of transparency in the mechanism. Also, funds often have the problem that they don't know what the fair market price is. They need to trust their fund managers. So if they might be trading or exchanging their tokens on the Dutch exchange, they can see that this is really a fair, or they can vouch that it's a fair value they've received for the exchange of that token. As I mentioned earlier, smart contracts may use the exchange. And also there are market makers, particularly they might be interested in having zero fees to pay and still obtaining fees from the ecosystem that we redistribute in the Dutch exchange. So the next logical question that you might have is then, why are you building this? And Gnosis obviously is a prediction market platform and not really in the business of decentralized exchanges. Also, as you might have gathered, we don't really gain anything from this. So essentially, if you were at the talk yesterday, we're building a platform for prediction markets, and currently we're using an automated market maker to find the price for the market. Essentially, we would like to move to a point where it's tradable and the price can be found on a marketplace. So it is really the outcome tokens created in the prediction market should become tradable, and this is a very neat mechanism to find the right market price. So it's very our own motivation that we would like to have a decentralized exchange, because we will need it in the end for our prediction market platform. Speaking of which, we are launching a competition next week called Gnosis X. You might find some flyers on your seats as well, and you can come find the team and me afterwards as well if you want to hear more about this specific project. So basically, we are launching 3 categories: science and R&D, token diligence, and blockchain project integration. And in each of these categories, you can win a total of 100,000 US dollar worth in GNO tokens. So the idea is really to incentivize others to build on top some application on top of our prediction market platform. It's quite cool. We have a great jury. So we have our co-founders in the jury. We also have Joe Lubin and Robin Hansen, who can decide which project will win. This is it. So I think I'll take some questions. I have some backup slides if you're interested more, but I think I just want to open up for questions on this at this point.